Hey, thank you for stopping by, Brian, for Liberty. It's been a little over a week since my last video. I do apologize for the long delay, but let me explain. If you have any spare time or any extra money, I have a great way for you to get rid of it, and that is to buy an old motorhome. I have spent the last week and a half working on my 96 Safari motorhome, which I recently pulled both the radiator and engine oil cooler out of to clean off and put back in because I was having overheating issues. And once I got everything put back together, the oil cooler was leaking, so I had to pull it all back apart, take the oil cooler to a radiator shop, have them repair it, reinstall everything. Got that all done, and once I got everything put back together, it wouldn't start because the fuel lift pump had failed. So anyway, that's been occupying essentially all of my spare time over the last couple of weeks, but I am back, and this video is going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to hit on a couple of small topics here. Not small topics, I should say, but I'm going to hit on them very briefly just to kind of illustrate my point. But I've been watching the news like everybody else, another mass shooting, another police shooting, the Jayland Walker situation. And you think about all of these different things, and you hear about it all the time in the media, and this is what they focus on, of course. And as they should, because these are big issues, these are big events, these are things that we need to be paying attention to, absolutely. But as I think through these, and I watch the conversations kind of take shape on Twitter and in the mainstream media and all of these different things, I can't help but think that nobody wants to talk about the solution. And if you watch prior videos of mine, going all the way back to the beginning, as I've come through and started to develop kind of what I want my channel to be about, nobody wants to have a conversation about the actual issue or to actually get into the problem solving phase. Black Lives Matter is a great example. Black Lives Matter was a movement against what? Police brutality, and unarmed African Americans dying at the hands of police. And that this is a horrible thing, right? Never, when you think of an unarmed person dying at the hands of the police, it's a terrible thing. But I said at the beginning of this, and I've done videos on BLM in the past, and I've said, look, do you really want to solve the issue? Because the issue isn't white cops killing unarmed black people there's not an epidemic of that going on throughout the country. There's just not. Anybody who's willing to take a minute and do any kind of statistical analysis and really look at this is going to realize very quickly that there's not some epidemic of racist white cops running around gunning down innocent black people that's not what's going on. And my thought with Black Lives Matter was what they're really opposed to here is obviously police brutality, unnecessary use of police force. Why aren't they focusing on that? Because I think a lot of people from all walks of life would get behind a movement that says, look, we have a problem with people dying at the hands of police. Excuse me, with unarmed people dying at the hands of the police. And there are plenty of examples from amongst all races. And if you included all cops who were involved in killing an unarmed person, and when I say all cops, I mean cops of all races, and you took the deaths of all races, white people, black people, everybody, and you took a holistic view, like this is how many unarmed people died at the hands of police last year, and you left it as completely a non-race issue, you could build a much larger coalition and accomplish a lot more. And I thought from the get-go, I said, if their real goal is to save black lives, then what they should be doing is building as large a coalition as they possibly can to create a movement that is not very controversial at all. That's not controversial to say we need to see why unarmed people are dying at the hands of the police and create as broad of a movement as possible. What Black Lives Matter did instead was we're going to take only a very specific type of incident. We're going to take black people dying at the hands of unarmed black people dying at the hands of police, of white police. And that's it. That's all we're going to look at. And I thought that's fraught with controversy. There are going to be people who say, well, look, this isn't, and I'm going to name the movement Black Lives Matter. I'm going to put race front and center. And this is a big problem, I think, with a lot of the left. A lot of what the left does is everything is race front and center. Everything has to be about race. Everything has to be about sexual identity. Everything has to be about ethnicity. All that. That's kind of what the left does, and we know that. But when you take something as serious as police brutality, as a person dying at the hands of the police, then you have to look at it holistically. You want to build as large a coalition as you possibly can. And immediately I thought, well, they're not actually interested in stopping this from happening. And when you look at when these protests happen, it's very convenient that this is always an issue that creeps up around the election cycle. It's not conspiratorial to say that. This is just the way it's always been. Look, we just had a shooting in, jeez, I'm losing my mind here. We just had a police shooting in Akron. This is a very controversial shooting. What's going on here where a guy is shot, 40 times, the Jayland Walker situation where a guy is shot like 40 some odd times by police. He's unarmed. There's a possibility he shot out of the car. And I haven't been following it. I'll be honest, I'm tired of it. I haven't been following the case. But that's, we put that front and center and we say, okay, this guy ran, but it's problematic because maybe he's shot. Then you look at a Black Lives Matter protest that's taking place in another city where an officer shot an armed black man who had fired into into a woman's apartment, luckily missed her and her children and wouldn't surrender to police and was shot. And Black Lives Matter shows up and starts protesting. And I don't understand why that is. And I can't help but think that if this is a BLM organized event, that what is going on? Why are you doing? You're not doing this protest isn't going to build a coalition. You're not going to gain support. You're going to turn people off to your movement by doing this. And it occurs to me that they're not interested in solving the problem. And I look at the same thing when it comes to climate change. And before I get into climate change, let me back this up a second. My point here is that I think at the highest levels that what you really have when it comes to these issues that we're facing, what you're really dealing with is agitators, community agitators. Because as we roll into election season, it's incredibly important that we are arguing amongst ourselves, that middle class, lower class, upper middle class, whatever your economic situation is, or your social, where you are in the social situation, we should be arguing with each other, even though we have far more in common and our goals are very similar. We should be arguing with each other to the greatest possible extent. And the reason for that is because politicians don't want to be asked to solve problems because they don't have solutions. We're not trying to create a solution to a problem when we're working in the community, when we're agitating, when we're organizing a protest like the one that took place here. And I'm sorry, the city escapes my mind, but if you look it up, this is a pretty recent thing where I'm going to get a BLM protest together. And the mother came out and was screaming, "This isn't right." And it's a pretty controversial thing. And that's intentional. It's divisive, and it's kind of, the other side of that argument's got, there's a lot of, it's pretty reasonable. And so you're pitting these two forces against each other, even though here's what they want. They want, both sides of this argument want safe neighborhoods. Both sides of this argument want less police brutality. Like, nobody's like, I think it's great that police are killing unarmed people. We're going to argue about another thing. We're going to make this about something more divisive so that these people don't have conversations and go, well, yeah, we kind of think the same thing. We want the same thing. And let's start working towards solutions. Because once two groups of people who were opposed to each other start talking about what they actually want, what they actually expect their government to do for them, what they actually want, what they want their community to look like, and they start figuring out that they kind of all want the same thing, well, they're going to look at their politician and go, why are you not delivering this? And the truth of the bottom of that is, the truth is that your politicians can't deliver what you want. They're incapable of creating what you want them to create. And they know this. And so what they're doing is, I think we all know it. What they're doing is they're taking the most divisive stuff, putting it front and center, because that way we're incapable of having any kind of meaningful conversation amongst ourselves. So when I come on here in a prior video and I say I'm pro-life, this issue has been blown up and it's so divisive already that a lot of people aren't even going to listen to me past that. But my overarching belief is that the reason I think it should be a states' rights issue is because I think we should have, I don't want putting things in the hands of the federal government means the federal government, any right the federal government grants you is a right the federal government can take away. So that worries me. And then we put a power that shouldn't exist at that level at that level. What if the wrong person is in control of that power? So that's part one for me. That's why I like local control or more local control. I would oppose a federal ban on abortion. Most people don't get that far to hear me say that. And second, even a state ban, even at the local level, even though I'm pro-life, I would be very concerned about how that would grow the police state. And so what I'm saying is, as a pro-life person, my goal isn't necessarily to see nationwide bans on abortion. My goal would be to provide as much support as we possibly can to women who are pregnant, and as much education and resources to young people in particular before an unwanted pregnancy occurs. So I would look at prevention and support as and I think we're going to get a lot further and we're going to prevent a lot more abortions that way than we are with a bunch of bans. And I think if you talk to the pro-life people and you come at them with like, look, I understand you want to ban this, you want to ban that. I don't know how many abortions banning things is actually going to prevent, but I think you're going to get a lot closer to your goal of an abortion-free society with love, support, and a lack of forcing people to do things the way you want to do them. So, and if we all sat down and talked about the focus should be on creating what is the best possible outcome for the woman, the best possible outcome for the woman is not to have an unwanted pregnancy, and work it backwards from there. That's the best. Let's work towards the best outcome in as many possible cases as we can, and then go from there, right? And I look at the same thing with police brutality. Well, what's the problem? What's causing the police brutality issue? Well, the police brutality issue is being caused because we have far too many police interactions with the general public. Well, why do we have too many police interactions with the general public? Well, we have too many laws on the books and we're asking the police to do too many freaking things. And so we have millions of police interacting with millions of people every year. And if we start backing down what the role of police is in our communities, then we don't need to have as many interactions. If we don't need to have as many interactions, we don't need to have as many police. And if we don't need to have as many police, the level of officer we're going to have on the street is going to be higher. So if we're asking police to do more things, then we're going to need more police interactions with the public. And if we need more interactions, we need more police, which means we have to start accepting a lower and lower, quite frankly, quality of person and put them on the force. I've said this a million times. If you need 600,000 police and only 600,000 people apply, then you're going to accept the worst applicant because you have to fill those roles. We're just asking police to do far too much. I don't want to defund the police per se. I want the police doing less things and making sure they have more than enough resources to get the job done. But I don't, and I'm going to get into all of these issues, from abortion to police brutality to climate change, which is the next topic I'm getting ready to talk about in upcoming videos. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you're still hanging around here, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notifications. I don't put out 15 videos a day. You're not going to get a constant bell ring from me. As you can see, sometimes I'll go a week or so without making one. But my next topic is going to be climate change. The next thing I want to talk about is climate change. And I'm going to do a video focused predominantly. My next video is going to be focused predominantly on climate change, because that's an issue that the Supreme Court has recently ruled on. There's a Vox article on it about how they, are rolling back the, EPA's ability to set carbon standards and all these different things. It's like, oh, this is evil, Republican, conservative, and let's fight over this, right? And so you're going to have Republicans saying, I don't believe in man-made climate change. I don't believe in the greenhouse gases are causing the issue. And the left is saying, I do believe in this, and here's why, and here's why. And what are we arguing about? We're arguing about science that 98%, 99% of the people who are involved in these arguments are completely unqualified to talk about. Realistically, well, here's this research paper I read. You're not even qualified to read the research paper, by and large. I mean, most any real in-depth research on climate change is going to require some kind of a background in it to even understand what the guy's trying to tell. It doesn't, but the point is, it doesn't matter if I believe in climate change or not. It doesn't matter if I believe in man-made climate change or not. Here's what Republicans and Democrats, left and right, here's what everybody wants. Cheap, clean energy. Everybody wants cheap, clean energy. Why don't we have cheap, clean energy? We have the ability to create cheap, clean energy. I'm going to talk about nuclear a little bit, but one of the things you hear about nuclear is it's not safe, it's not safe, it's not safe. We have 14 aircraft carriers and I don't know how many submarines, all of which are powered by nuclear power plants that we put on warships surrounded by ammunition and send out to sea. But nuclear is not safe enough to build in the middle of the United States, not on a fault line, not on the coast, but in the middle of the United States. We can't build nuclear power plants because they're unsafe, but they're operating these warships at sea, and that's perfectly fine, and nobody even talks about it. So the idea that nuclear isn't safe seems odd to me. It's clean, it's safe, and I'm going to get into nuclear and climate change issue in a bit. But what's funny to me is even if you set that aside, you got Joe Biden going to Saudi Arabia right now, asking the Saudis to pump more oil after doing a bunch of stuff here that reduces our ability to produce oil. Not only that, but we still have sanctions against Venezuela and oil, because Venezuela's evil, but we're going to go and ask Saudi. We're willing to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. We're not willing to buy oil from Venezuela. It doesn't make any sense. Drop all the sanctions. Is Iran more evil than Saudi Arabia? We should be not sanctioning oil. The market should be wide open. We should be refining as much oil in the United States as we possibly can, because we will refine it cleaner. We don't have to ship it to China and ship it back here as a refined product. We could refine it right here. It'd be cleaner, faster, more cost effective. Why are we shipping? We're not reducing oil usage because our green president, Joe Biden, is in Saudi Arabia asking them to pump more oil. So it's not like we're cutting back on oil usage. We're just getting gas into our tanks in a far more inefficient way. And we're talking about coal-fired plants. If we hadn't scrapped nuclear decades ago, would there even be coal-fired plants anymore? And even if you think nuclear is dangerous, if offset of the danger of nuclear compared to the danger of coal, right? If you're a believer in the catastrophic destruction of the planet through the burning of coal and oil, then the regional risk in the short term of nuclear power is far less until we can get other renewable sources ready for prime time. Why don't we talk about that? Well, because we're sitting arguing about whether or not greenhouse gas is the issue behind climate change, not talking about solutions and how to bring clean energy actually online. It's just, the whole thing is insane. And I watch this every election cycle. And it's like, let's sit around and argue about things that aren't really dealing with the core issue. Every single one of these has a core issue, right? With climate change, it's not about what you believe. It's about how do we get as many clean energy sources online that keep the cost of energy low, but also make energy production cleaner and safer. How do we do that? That's the goal, right? It's not about whether or not women have access to abortions. And that's a great policy issue. That's a great candidate issue because it's so divisive. But at the end of the day, what we really want to do is reduce unwanted pregnancies to the highest possible extent, because that's actually, whether you're on the left or the right, that's the best possible outcome for the woman. And it's not about, so when we talk, it's not about ending police brutality, which we absolutely, it's about why are police having so many interactions with civilians, and how do we cut that back and raise and elevate the quality of officer on the street? Because that's what we all want if we want to reduce. But let's make it about race, because that's much more divisive, and we can argue about that, and we can really turn that into a campaign issue. So as we move forward this year in the campaigns, and as that all starts ramping up more and more and more, I'm going to do more and more videos addressing issues. I'm going to keep attacking the news. You're going to see more of that. I know I didn't, usually I have some articles that I read through and whatnot, but I just wanted to kind of clarify where I'm going with this channel and what my goals are going to be in terms of the conversations I'm trying to instigate. And that's, I guess, at the end all be all of this whole video is I'm trying to instigate conversations between people who would otherwise not be able to sit down and have a conversation. I want the left and the right in this country to start talking to each other, because we are nothing right now but pawns for the politicians. And every couple of years they kick over the hornet's nest and get us all spun up to make sure that we're not sitting around a table having a conversation about what our actual goals are for our community. And that's how they stay in power. And that's why we have a two-party political system that can only stay in power. Nobody likes Congress. The only way these guys stay in power is if they keep us so angry at the other side. It's not that we're happy with the people. I don't know a lot of Democrats who love Joe Biden. It's not that Democrats love Joe Biden. It's that they hate whoever the Republican's going to be more than their disdain for Joe Biden. It's not about being better. It's about not being as bad as the opposition. And we can do better than that as a nation, but we really got to start as people talking to each other in order to get there. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, Brian for Liberty. Again, please subscribe, turn on notifications. My goal is going to be to try and get one of these out every week, and then kind of maybe ramp up from there. But thanks again for stopping by, and we'll see you guys next time.